Springfield's Talk, 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com. We do have that Heroes Breakfast tomorrow, and that means, of course, if you are a veteran, I'd love for you to come out and get yourself some free breakfast. Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, the Warriors Journey, and Scramblers all making that possible. That is 6 to 9 tomorrow morning. A little bit of information for you there. Coming up after 6:30, we will talk with State Rep Jimmy Gregg. He is running for re-election, and if you aren't able to catch that, of course, it will be up in podcast form sometime during or after the show, not only in the standard podcast area, but also in the election section, make it a little easier for you to find. We've done a couple of races, those that are more high-profile, Curtis Trent and Lori Rook, of course. If you didn't catch any of those or you caught one or want to listen again, podcast, recommend at ksgf.com or the app. And then Angela Romine joined us yesterday. She is challenging incumbent Gregg, and so he will be joining us again after 6:30. Christy Filnecki will be here, and then we'll have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Of course, the big story yesterday, which really kicked off as we were broadcasting live, and that was Fauci invoking the fifth, which turned out to be 110, 111 times, somewhere around there. And, in order to highlight the absurdity of it, the line of questioning, much of the line of questioning, not all of it, but much of it, from Senator Hawley was asking him, what color's your tie? What color's the carpet? What color, just to almost demonstrate through mockery the absurdity of Fauci, who just no matter what the question is. And here's the thing about the Fifth. And the Fifth Amendment was put into place to protect American citizens from what had long been common practice under the Crown and other regimes through time. And that is, if you were accused of something and you were innocent, they would just beat the confession out of you. Yeah, you have the right to defend yourself, but we're just going to beat you until you confess to the crime. And then, they confessed, so that's how we know they did it. And because that was common practice, instead of setting up a boundary or a hard line that says, hey, government can't do that, it took it from the perspective of the American citizen and said, you can't be compelled to testify against yourself. The government cannot compel you to do that, so you have the right to just keep your mouth shut. And that, of course, is the Fifth Amendment. Depending on the person declaring the Fifth Amendment, depends on the perspective of the Fifth Amendment. So, for example, if Fauci is, as he did over 100 times, the Fifth Amendment, you have some that recognize that and promote it as essentially a declaration of guilt. You don't have to declare the Fifth unless you are guilty. I think one of the best postings that was made on social media, or maybe it was said aloud, was that science doesn't have to declare the Fifth. I thought that was pretty good. Now, on the other side, it is, hey, just because you declare, that's the whole point of the Fifth. The whole point of the Fifth Amendment is that you can't be compelled to testify against yourself. You can't be compelled, so you can't assume that a person is guilty just because they're saying the Fifth. Well, yes, you can. You just can't in a court of law. So you can be dead to rights. It can be as obvious as can be. But if you are in a court of law, you cannot be forced. You cannot be compelled to testify against yourself. And, if you're being interrogated, you can't, these are just things from a legal standpoint. And so none of that can be utilized in the context of our legal system. But that doesn't mean, as individuals, we have to pretend as if, we're jurors in a courtroom. We can use common sense. And common sense dictates to honest observers. Given Fauci's own words in his own diary, he is a liar. He is a criminal. He belongs in prison. And this presentation that we continue, I kid you not, NPR, I printed off an article, they published a piece. Let me see what it's titled here. I think I printed it off. Yes. So, animal spillover, lab leak, what the science says about the origins of COVID-19. Now, this has long been settled in terms of just common sense. Even Fauci, this is why it's partially a point of contention. Even Fauci, in his journal, we've learned that he was told that intelligence and communications from China and everything about this was lab. He himself acknowledged that all signs pointed to a lab leak. And we know that he went on this crusade in order to get other scientists who recognized the likelihood of it being a lab leak to do an about face. And he was on a mission. We know this because of emails that have been released. We know this because of his own diary. I mean, it's all clear as day. NPR is doubling down on crafting or attempting to craft this narrative because of this becoming a focus again with Fauci. A narrative that, all the experts believe that the odds are it was the wet market and not a lab leak. They cite in their article, what does the quote evidence show? And they cite the fact that the report issued in 2025, the World Health Organization stated, the weight of available evidence suggests zoonotic spillover either directly from bats or through an intermediate host. So the World Health Organization. The conclusion was based on 3 years of research by the 27 members of the World Health Organization Scientific Advisory Group. Well, they turned out to be just as dishonest as China, as Fauci. And so here you've got NPR that still laughably tries to present itself as some sort of valid, reliable, ethical news outlet. And they are running propaganda. This is straight up North Korean style, communist Chinese style reporting. And to use the World Health Organization, which was on the financial hook with China and long ago was exposed as acting as lapdogs of China, for NPR to go to them and hey, this lab leak thing, what do you say about it? Oh, no, absolutely not. China's completely innocent. So NPR declares that in all likelihood, of course, it's this doubling down. Now, the reality is most people who go to NPR for the purposes of actually getting information as news are left-wingers that will, they're going to believe Fauci anyway. It doesn't matter that he, in his own hand, has acknowledged through his diary writings and his emails that all of this was a scam. He's one of the most consequentially devastating scam artists that this country has ever exposed. None of that matters to the left, because they are cult followers. And just like when a cult leader is completely exposed as a scam artist, most of them double down. Rarely do any of them say, I've been a fool all this time. I think I'm out of here. Rarely does that happen. And it's the same with left in dealing with Fauci and anything that's anti-Trump. Now, some of you probably check into NPR just to see what they're saying, their spin on things. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people that believe NPR is a legitimate source of objective information because it validates their preconceptions and their biases. So point being is when NPR continues to deliberately spread disinformation in order to cover for their own malfeasance and to cover for the cult master Fauci, it's not really changing any minds. All right, so what's going to happen to him? We'll get to that next. What calls are Rand Paul, he has said yesterday Congress will vote on holding Fauci in contempt. Ted Cruz has made some comments as well because this is where so many Americans are, and they know this. Average Americans are sick and tired of watching these people fully exposed as breaking laws, fully exposed as individuals that if it were you or I would be in prison for the rest of our lives and then nothing happening to them. And so there's some response on that coming up. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88 and heat index values as high as 98. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers mainly in the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 92, heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79.
I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs, you got the characters in their team. There is a 10 commandments of what not to do if you are in that process of buying a new home after you get pre-approval. Some of the things may seem counterproductive. I'm talking about pre-approval for a loan. You go through the process and like, oh, you're good for $350,000. So happy shopping. And by the way, I think it's 6 months that is good for. A lot. I think there's this, and I want to say I used to have this idea that when they did that credit check, that was good for only 30 days. It's I want to say it's 6 months. It's an extended period of time that you have. So it's not like we got to find something in 30 days. Otherwise, we got to go through that whole process again. But point being is, let's say you're in that period of time and maybe you finally sold a car for cash, $8,000 or something, and you're like, oh, we'll put that in our checking account. Hey, that can only help us, right? That can actually hurt you, work against you, because government rules and regulations. All of a sudden, a red flag. Where'd they get all this cash? What's going on here? Is there some sort of drug laundering thing going on? Point being is, there are a number of things that are obvious to a lot of people you don't want to do if you are in that process, but some that may not be so obvious, and it's just one of the many benefits of the site itself, and also the great launching point for home loans, refinancing, reverse mortgages. I want a greathomeloan.com. Senator Rand Paul, chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, said that there will be a panel vote to hold Anthony Fauci in contempt after the former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease director refused to answer any questions during his testimony on Wednesday. Instead, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Paul told reporters after the hearing, which featured Fauci refusing to answer one question after another, quote, "That's a vote that will happen in committee next week. It will be in contempt of Congress. We believe that with his immunity from criminal liability, that he didn't need to hide behind the Fifth Amendment, and that may be the Fifth Amendment doesn't attach when you have a pardon in place," he explained. He said that'll be a legal question, but the question on contempt will be voted on, and then there's a question of whether or not the Department of Justice will take that up. Now, Senator Hawley noted the Supreme Court case from 1800 and something. I mean, it's well over 100 years old. Maybe it's early 1900s, but I think it was the 19th century. But point being that the Fifth Amendment is not applicable for something that you have immunity on or you've been pardoned on. And, he cited the case in which that was determined. And so this leaves the door open for advancement in some sort of potential charges. You've got Ted Cruz calling for Fauci to be held in contempt as well and prosecuted for perjury and sent to jail after he pled the Fifth more than 100 times. Cruz told Fox News Digital, years from now, they'll look back and say, what collective madness overtook this country? I think Anthony Fauci has had contempt for Congress and contempt for the American people for decades. His diary shows that he deliberately lied to the American people over and over and over again. He noted Fauci ought to think about what it says about the end of his career, that he will be remembered for the most is pleading the Fifth more than 100 times. He has been the most damaging bureaucrat in the history of America. We'll see. I think more than ever, there is a likelihood, though I don't have full confidence, given the slim majority, particularly in the House, and just on the Senate side, some of these Republicans like Tillis and Thune to some degree, they hate Trump so much. And they see Fauci, like so many people on the left do, as anti-Trump, which means he is a god. And I could see them protecting him just in their minds to stick it to Trump. Forget about the crimes, forget about the lies, forget about the massive damage that was done to this country. Forget about all of that. And I think a lot of Americans feel that way also. But if ever there was a time in which it was more or most likely someone like this will actually be held accountable with Republicans in power, I think it would be this time. And that is for a combination of reasons. One, a lot of these Republican lawmakers, they are fed up of all of this as well. They recognize that their constituents are fed up. And I think some of them realize that there's a large portion of their constituency that actually have moved past being fed up and just given up, which is worse. because instead of being angry, apathy sets in. And when apathy sets in, people stop going out to vote. People that traditionally get out to vote for Republicans because they're angry and they want something done begin to say, what's the point? Because even when my people are in charge, they don't actually do anything. They don't hold these people accountable. And I think that the smart Republican lawmakers recognize that there's a great deal of danger in that. That and the fact that, I mean, this would be like the O.J. Simpson trial if O.J. Simpson had written a diary word for word laying out the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. And it's like at some point you literally can't have more evidence than exist. For those who want to claim that Fauci is innocent, I challenge you to, in your own mind, determine what would it take for you. Like, create a magical scenario in which you would finally acknowledge, yes, he's a dishonest liar that has committed crimes. What would that look like? And I suspect you won't be able to think of anything, because he's virtually done everything other than openly confess in Congress, which essentially he did by pleading the Fifth. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. It looks like we're going to get a little bit of a break from the heat over the weekend, and then the temps, they're going to shoot right back up to the mid to upper 90s next week. Typically, the dead of summer is when breakdowns do occur, and if your AC is already struggling to keep up, I don't want you to find yourself in that situation where you do have a breakdown. That is why I want to tell you about Foreman Mechanical. They offer residential and commercial HVAC services. They do everything from your maintenance to repairs to brand new unit installs. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home or to your business, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com. Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88, heat index values as high as 98. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers, mainly in the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 92. Heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79.
Election coming up Tuesday. Sample ballots at KSGF.com, sponsored by Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio, running for re-election in the 140th. Jamie Gregg with us, and it's not like completely unheard of, but oftentimes incumbents don't necessarily have serious challengers, but you are in a challenging race here, at least somebody that really is out there campaigning. So maybe some folks a little new to the game, don't necessarily know much about you. So just, tell folks who you are and what you've been doing and why you want to get reelected.
Sure. Good morning. I grew up in Southwest Missouri, grew up in Christian County. Been here for a long time. My family's been here for, since before Missouri was Missouri. What have I been doing? Like I said, grew up, went to college at SBU, Southwest Baptist, up in Bolivar, Missouri. From there, excuse me. Spent many years in the ministry. Did ministry in the local church as minister of education, youth, and also in camping ministry. Did church ministry for many, many years. And then from there, started a family. As the family grew, decided that, with camping ministry being more of a transient position, felt the calling to maybe put that aside a little bit. With camping ministry, that's the lifespan at a church camp at a ministry is about 5 to 7 years, and that's kind of hard on a family when you've got little kids. So we decided to come back home. Did more time back here. This is a great place to raise a family. Kids grew up here. Was in real estate until the market tanked, obviously, in the early 2000s. Did many years as entertaining down in Branson, Silver Dollar City. Spent 15 years down there. So many of you probably see me down at Silver Dollar City. During the COVID years, obviously, that was an odd time. And so got into running my own wood shop business, and so making sawdust has been the thing for the last many years. When the calling to run for state rep became opened up, we had a state rep that termed out, ran in 2020, was not successful in my first run. Trish Durgis ran and won that race. She had some challenges that did not give her a second term. I ran again in 2022 and been in the seat since then. And this is finishing up my second term right now. And so, it's been a very interesting time. I thought when I first felt the call to step into the state rep position, I thought, this isn't what I've ever thought about God. This is not what I've ever considered. I've never thought about politics because it was definitely a call from God, because this is nothing that my natural bent had ever considered. So I prayed about it very hard. I thought, Jefferson City's got to be probably the swampiest place that I've ever felt a calling to go to. And I've served in the local church in Fort Worth, downtown Fort Worth, Texas. I've been in Colorado, and I've been in some pretty odd places. But Jefferson City in politics is kind of odd. But fortunately, there are some folks that I've been able to serve with that are also evangelicals, and there's been a camaraderie with some good folks that also serving, and so it's been a blessing.
We're talking with Jamie Gregg, running for re-election. So this would be your third term?
Correct.
Third
Correct.
term. And he, of course, will be on the ballot for those of you that are in his. It's the 140th. For people to describe, because not everyone, they know exactly what district they're in.
Sure.
What is that coverage?
It was pretty easy to describe before redistricting. It was pretty square, but now it's kind of an odd shape. It goes all the way from the James River just south of Battlefield, goes as you go east along Tracker Road in North Nixa. Then it bumps up right there at 160 to CC Highway, and it kind of does a few little jogs, but along CC Highway over to Ozark, and then pretty much most of Ozark proper. When you get south of Ozark, about a mile or two, is the line. You've got going east, goes to Linden, goes over the top of Sparta. If you vote at Sparta Precinct, which is downtown Sparta. That is not in the 140th, but it goes over the top of Sparta, and then it has Bruner, and then all the way over to Douglas County line. So all of it is entailed within Christian County. So it's everything south of the Greene County line and everything west of the Douglas County line in Christian County.
We're going to get a traffic update, and then when we come back, have you list one or more of, what you would say at this point. People are asking, what are you most proud of? What are things that you've done that you want to be known for thus far?
Sure.
As you have been serving in the Missouri House. So we'll continue on with Jamie Gregg coming up, running for re-election. Again, sample ballots at KSGF.com, sponsored by Brad Pistol, host of Safe Money Radio. I'm Nick Reed. Jamie Gregg running for re-election 140th. If you were to be asked, well, what have you done?
What have I done?
What have you done? What are you, the stuff you're proud of course. Lead with that.
Right now it seems like I've become the father guy at the Capitol. I almost said Silver Dollar City. I'm used to. I've been there. I was there for so long. But I'm kind of become the father guy because of the legislation that I've filed for the last 3 years. But more than anything, more than that, I want to be known as the person who legislation has everything to do when it comes to the family unit, because I believe, honestly, if you take care of the family unit, you are in essence taking care of everything else, because everything else centers off of taking care of mom, dad, kids, grandpa, and grandma. If you take care of those folks, everything else kind of falls mostly into place. If you take care of dad, you're taking care of workforce development. You're taking care of everything that he entails. If you take care of mom, you're taking care of everything that she entails. You're taking care of everything that she is taking care of in her world. If you take care of kids, you're taking care of education. You're taking care of all the things that are in a kid's world. And same thing with grandparents. Everything kind of radiates out from that. And so if you take care of that family unit right there, you're also taking care of in protecting that unit as well, because we have so much attacking the family these days. And Satan knows how to destroy that. And if we can destroy that nucleus, he will. And the best way to kill a living organism of the family is to cut the head off. And right now, fathers and dads are under attack. And if you cut the head off, the body will die. And that's kind of why this legislation that I'd filed was needed. We've got dads that are just they're non-existent. That's the forgotten demographic right now.
What is that legislation?
Sure, we've got a lot of dads that want to be dad that are not able to be dad. They've got roadblocks. They've got barriers that are keeping them from being dad. And now we're not talking about deadbeat dads. We're not talking about dads who have taken off and just don't want to be dads. Dads that are either not married to mom. That's unfortunately in our society happens, or in a divorce situation or something like that, where dads are just not in the picture. But dads that are they want to be dads, but for some reason, whether it be barriers or roadblocks because of legal system or workforce or maybe a relationship with mom, some roadblocks that keep them from being dad. But they do desire, they do have the heart, they do have everything that it takes to be dad. They just have those things that are keeping them from being dad. This legislation does not create anything within the state to build bigger government by any means. What this does is it creates the avenue for our nonprofits, our community organizations to do that work. That way we're not employing, we're not doing anything like that at all. It was a successful legislation that DeSantis down in Florida enacted, and it's a wonderful piece of legislation. And it's been very successful for the last 2 or 3 years.
How does it work?
So what it does is it creates within the state a line item in the budget. And it can be filled with grants, donations, things of that nature, things from the community. Now, that doesn't mean that the state can't throw money in there as well. Well, I'm not asking for anything in the budget. So donations, grants, endowments can be thrown in there from private organizations, okay? And we don't have to worry about manning it because we've already got that already set up in the state. So we're not creating bigger government right there. So these nonprofits, community organizations can apply towards a portion of those dollars, and they have to use those dollars to hire, train, and facilitate fathership engagement professionals. And they use those fathership engagement professionals, kind of like a caseworker, to take those dads who are referred to their program through the court systems, through local organizations, or dad can even come to their organizations themselves. And these organizations can be like OCAC or Catholic Charities or even Man Up, Good Dads, organizations like this. And they will take dad, find out what his situation is, because every dad has their own unique situation. Find out what those barriers are and help him create a unique plan to get from where he's at right now to where he can be in front of dad and help him overcome those barriers. Whether like I said, they're the court systems, whether they're his own barriers within himself, or relationship. It could be with mom. It could be that relationship with mom is keeping that, because ultimately, it's called a fatherhood bill, but ultimately it's a kid bill because our kids need mom and dad. That's the way God created us. If God created us to need mom and dad, why are we not giving our kids everything they need? There are things we get from dad that we can't get from mom. There are things we can get from mom that we can't get from dad. And if we don't do everything we can to help our kids grow up with everything they need, then we're going to get the society that we're getting today. And I don't know about you, but walk outside and you see the society today is just messed up. These kids need every opportunity to be as healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. And we're getting some really, really big problems.
Jamie Gregg with us, running for re-election in the 140th sample ballot, sponsored by Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio at KSGF.com. Of course, next Tuesday, the primary election. And we're going to get another traffic update and then take a final segment. Any final thoughts that Jamie Gregg has, we'll share with you. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Jamie Gregg running for re-election in the 140th, and that, of course, is coming up on Tuesday. And in this part, well, particularly certain areas, certain districts, the primary, if there is one, is the real race. Is there a Democrat that's going to be running?
Yes, we have
Okay.
a perpetual Democrat that runs.
Oh,
every
okay,
year.
got it. So there's no primary going on with them, and some.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is, for all intents and purposes, the election for you. And in the last couple of minutes here, just any final thoughts, takeaways you want people to think about as they mull over their vote come Tuesday.
This is it's been kind of kind of a long summer already, but it's only been 2 months now. Closing remarks. What I would challenge folks to do is just get out, ask the questions, meet who you've got as your opportunities, your choices. Ask the questions, find out the differences. You'll find out that I am the most pro-choice. I am also Second Amendment proud. You won't find somebody more Second Amendment proud, even though many of the things you see and hear online would say otherwise. You won't find somebody who is more pro-family, somebody who's more community oriented. Somebody who grew up in Christian County, someone who knows and has the people's heart in mind, someone who is a product of Christian County. So get out, ask the questions, find out who the best choice is.
And if people want more info or to be able to message you, ask questions, is it social media, website, best way to do it?
I've got a Facebook page. I've actually got two. You're going to find one that says Jamie Ray Gregg. That's my personal one. But if you go Jamie Ray Gregg state representative, it's a campaign page. Check that one out. Like that one. Follow me there. You'll find everything you need to know.
All right. Well, appreciate it. And it sounds like in terms of weather, you may get at least a couple days of a break out there in the final stretch. So
there we go. I like that.
That certainly is. That's nice for all of you.
Yes.
Because I know it's the worst time to have primaries.
It's slightly oppressive.
I mean, it is just the absolute worst. In the upcoming hour, we do have Christy Fulnecki. She will be joining us. And then we have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. That will be coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. And then, of course, tomorrow, as we broadcast live from Scramblers, it will be a Heroes Breakfast. So if you are a veteran and you come out as we broadcast live from 6A to 9A, you will get free breakfast. And that is thanks to a number of our incredible partners: Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, one of them, Delta Roofing, The Warrior's Journey, an incredible, incredible organization, and, of course, Scramblers, helping make that possible as well. So that'll be tomorrow between 6A and 9A. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Brookline Door Works. Residential, commercial, you name it, they cover it. Security gates as well. Average garage door gets about 3,000 uses per year. Now, springs, those big springs that are required to help your door go up and to go down, they won't without it. The lifespan's about 10,000 uses. And so that sounds like a lot. You think, oh, that's decades. No, with 3,000 times per year, you think, surely not that much. Every time you open and close it, that's 2 uses right there. Most people use their garage as their door instead of going in and out of their door, because you pull in and out of the garage and so that becomes your front door. And so that means 3 or 4 years you've pretty much expired those springs. Now, it can go years beyond that. That is a possibility. But once you get to that point, you really are sort of gambling. So I just recommend routine maintenance. Some of the biggest contributing factors to those springs snapping, temperature changes, which in this part of the country, in this part of the state, that is added stress that isn't necessarily there in other parts of the state. Extra friction resistance, lack of maintenance. If your door squeaks or something's not operating properly, you probably need a checkup. And they do the annual thing. I always annually have mine checked. And so whether it is residential or it is commercial, Brookline Door Works, and they're 24/7. So if you have an emergency, I guess it doesn't even have to be an emergency. I mean, you want to come have routine work done, maintenance check done 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, you could do that as well. BrooklineDoorWorks.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Going to head to news here right away. That way we can get to Christy Fulnecki. I'm Nick Reed.
First alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88, heat index values as high as 98. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers mainly in the afternoon, and then partly sunny with a high near 92, heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79.
Hey everyone, it's Christy Folnicki.
Good morning.
How are you there?
Ooh, is this new, this microphone?
It is.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's so fancy.
Yeah, that's I was
got a
gone.
new-
Was gone a couple weeks and came back and there were new microphones in here.
Oh, yeah. It's so fancy.
How is it even different? What?
I don't know. This kind of.
It's a different make.
Oh, is this part did not have
The
that?
microphone is different.
Like
Yeah.
this.
The
That I
next-
think that's what.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Microphone, Nick.
The next project.
That's just this part. This is the microphone. I'm asking if this. Yeah.
to this. Only here once a week. Get it together.
Okay.
It sounds different too. I'm echoing.
This is also a great start.
The next project is fixing the holes in the wall of the bathroom.
Now, don't get it.
Like Christ, silly.
That's what happens when you have fist fights in the girls' bathroom. You end up with holes in the wall.
The bathroom and like a mouse runs across the ceiling and drops into the bathroom.
A mouse.
We're
You
waiting
should be
for-
so lucky.
Not to use that bathroom.
or a raccoon or a squirrel. I know
Yeah.
you did say it was ghetto, but
I did. I said,
I didn't
hey,
believe you. I didn't know how ghetto you were talking about.
You're going to the bathroom.
Jane.
You go into the bathroom. You look, and you just see these glowing eyes looking at you.
I mean, you would hear me scream across this building. If a raccoon dropped from that ceiling, it's right over you. It's like pretty much covering the whole bathroom now.
yeah,
Just so you
it's
know.
not great. Well, you should see the men's
Let's
room.
just push the whole arm up.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Problem solving in the morning is not my thing.
Did you watch the old Fauchinator?
I don't know what to say.
Suddenly, the man
it's so-
suddenly the man who loves to hear himself talk.
Oh my God.
Himself with
picture-
little to say.
The picture Jesse Waters last night. Did you watch it?
No.
When he was talking about his diary, they had a picture up there, and he was laying on the bed on his stomach with his feet up and his hands in front of him. I was dying. My girls were like, "That is so funny." That picture of him.
What a joke!
And-
What a horrible joke!
You know,
That
it's
guy.
inappropriate. Because if you think about, I mean, there's obviously this has affected so many people on a personal level, but to think the whole time I'm watching him, I was thinking of all the hundreds of people
yeah.
that came to see me, all the lawsuits, I mean, so many people. And then Eric, and we have friends that
Yeah.
were ID too, and all the patients he saw with infectious disease. I mean, we were right in the middle of it. And it's just so tragic.
I know.
And I mean, it's really beyond words. And I mean, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say
No,
something?
I was just going to say, part of what's just sick and sad about it is there's only one Democrat, Fetterman, who
Yeah.
said that he regrets that he didn't push back more on some of the disinformation, particularly the lab leak stuff, in which Fauci, he's confessed. He did not mean to publicly confess that he was, conspiring with others in order to mislead the people about the COVID lab leak and instead perpetuating this disinformation campaign that it came from a market. And Fetterman's like the only Democrat that has said,
I know,
yeah, I
isn't
really
it?
regret this. I mean, none of these other people, that's what's so sick about it.
Yeah.
Listen, I understand, even like some of the Republicans that are really railing on him, I'm like, you kind of also were ragging on
I was
Trump
just, yeah, right.
whenever he was pushing back against Fauci. It's like, but at least they have, so the Republicans are acknowledging the truth now.
Yeah.
These
That's a good
Democrats,
point,
they
yeah.
no apologies. No, we were wrong.
The press.
Listen, in those early days, because people will sometimes criticize Trump and like, well, he was responsible for shutting down this and that. I'm like, yeah, but Trump, once he realized, wait a minute
right, I know.
here, this stuff isn't making sense. This isn't working. The things that you're telling me, so there's some common sense missing here. he corrected course.
Yeah.
He didn't just stick with it like some of the rest and, well, Fauci's the expert, so I completely surrender all of my constitutional duties to him, and he by default is now running the government. Trump didn't do that. And that's why, again, so many Republicans even were coming out and bashing on him. But I can understand a lawmaker saying, listen, like Fetterman, I was in retrospect, knowing what I know now, I was wrong. I got caught up in it. I was, for whatever reason. But other than him, there's no Democrat. I mean, they're doubling down on this stuff. They still act as if these diary, this is a full-blown confession from Fauci, unintentional as it may be.
Right, yeah.
And you want to talk about just proving you don't care about the truth and you don't care about your constituents. Every one of those Democrat lawmakers that are defending him, their constituents were victims of him.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
There were people who lost their jobs because of him. There were people arrested for taking their kids to the park because of him. Mm-hmm. There were people who lost their lives because of him. There were people who are suffering to this day from having horrific side effects of vaccines because they believe that there was absolutely no danger whatsoever. Now, even if they had been told the truth by Fauci, it doesn't mean that all of those people would have decided not to get the vaccine, but at least they would have had all of the information. And it's the constituents of all of those people, but instead they're siding with the guy that has confessed to all of these lies unintentionally through his diary.
And a big one that I saw a lot, it's when I tried to intervene was, people that their loved ones were dying in the nursing home and in the hospital and they couldn't be there. That was a big issue.
Yes.
But, okay, I understand like when people say, I was wrong. I understand that. But, at the time, it's just so interesting how a large number now, okay, granted, it's probably most conservatives that I had as clients, but a lot of the American people knew it was wrong because they were coming saying this is not right.
That's why they were censoring us.
And because I remember when I first had the mask lawsuit, it was like me in Missouri, it was a state rep in Florida, and there was one other person in Texas. And in the very beginning, we had just psycho people going after us. How could you, do this? And all of these people, and the one politician, I remember Kristi Noem, she was one of the few people that actually spoke out on it. And DeSantis was talking last night. I said, I forgot, like in the beginning, he was.
Well, I really remember it because the way the media just went apoplectic over the beaches when the beaches were open. Yeah. And they'd have all these experts on about the millions of the butterfly effect are going to kill millions of people because of this and going to kill your grandma. Meanwhile, their party was deliberately putting COVID-infected patients into nursing homes with grandma that actually did kill grandma. People like Cuomo.
Yeah.
And what other state? There was it Illinois? There was another state that got caught. They were doing the same because it was all for cash. It was money.
Yeah. And then you had, a couple of hospital systems that were really pushing, the closure and the mask, especially in the local area. And so you're fighting against them. And, the attorney general at the time, we tried to get involved. We tried to get, any kind of politician involved. And, it's just funny because I think back, granted that people make mistakes, but to me, that was very clear what was happening. And, for very few politicians to stand up and say anything in the beginning, there's a couple, I'm not going to say who they are, but I don't like when they ride the popularity wave when, this is safe to come out and say, there's somebody that came out and, I'm going to take on these, St. Louis cases and sue over the mask mandate. Well, that was like 4 years later. What are you talking about?
Well, and same with some of these Republicans. And if you're a Republican that was on the bandwagon and now you're really railing against Fauci. At the very least, I think you should acknowledge, hey, I was part of the problem.
I know, exactly.
And I apologize
'Cause you-
for it,
yeah.
and it was genuine. It was because I believe this stuff. I learned my lesson. But those that don't, they just act like, oh, you SOB. And I'm like, you know what? Just shut up.
I know, and I wish.
Where were you when people
right.
like citizens like us
Yeah.
were asking questions and you were on the side of comply or go to prison, peasant?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just have no use for it.
Yeah, and we try to get so many people involved, at every level. Can you at least help us somehow? And then especially when the mandatory vaccine started and people started, they're being fired. And I had so many clients of nurses and doctors and the EOC is who it would go through. Like they were trying to, claim religious discrimination and everything. And the EOC had so many, like hundreds of thousands of complaints in Missouri. So they just started dismissing things. I mean, it was, and you're just trying to get anybody to help you. And nobody wants to touch it because, it's either they believed it or they didn't want to speak out against the group that, hey, this is wrong. Just shut this down and fire these people.
And this is how deranged I don't know if you want to call it the establishment is. And Springfield to me was just a great example of how to do it wrong.
I know.
I mean, you had
amen to that.
And Greene County, you had signs being distributed to businesses bragging about, oh, we're all vaccinated, misleading people into believing that meant that they couldn't get it if they went in there.
Yeah.
So if you had, because I remember talking about this at the time, that this virtue signaling, and if you had an elderly person that, somebody that would potentially lose their life because of COVID, because of their age and other health issues, that believed local government that, oh, as long as everyone's vaccine, you're fine. And then they go into a restaurant with a sign believing that they're safe. So they did that. They had these rules that made no sense whatsoever. You had local businesses have to shut down. You had they told people to call 911 if you saw somebody without a mask.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, all of this insanity.
Tell on your neighbor.
And then when Mayor McCheese is on his way out, virtually every little glowing article written about him and every little speech just going on and on about him just praised him, how he guided us through COVID. I'm like, are you out of your mind?
That's such BS.
Are you that deranged? These people have no, like the fact that, I don't know what you call it, when you behave in that manner, and then not only do you never apologize, but I think they genuinely tell themselves, we did a wonderful thing, the way we handled that. Like you are detached from reality and have no sense of accountability.
And I was just thinking last night, what do local governments think when they watched that yesterday? When they watched him?
Oh, I think they detach themselves from their culpability. I think that they completely, or they see Fauci as a victim. Poor Fauci. They're just going after him because they don't like him. They completely, they allow themselves to be brainwashed. They're part of the cult.
And to think of everything that they did affected kids and mental health. And I had one case that it was a tennis player from Mexico, and I'm not going to say the school system, but we had everything worked out because she didn't even have COVID. She was sitting, the 6 feet, the arbitrary number from
that
somebody.
Fauci admitted was a made up number.
And so on the 9th or 10th, I don't think it was the 10th day, it was like the 9th day or something. We had it all worked out with the attorneys that she was going to get to play. And she was actually going to be recruited for college and really good tennis player. Got through the whole thing. And the health department director saw it on KY3, intervened, and shut the whole thing down. I even had it, and I had it set up that she was going to get a test at a lab before she went to play.
They don't care.
So she about power. Mexico and ruined her tennis career, and she could have stayed in the United States.
Yeah, it's power for them, trip.
I'm telling you, this whole subject just rages me.
I'm sure it does you more than a lot because you saw these people's lives ruined.
People that would sit there and cry that people were carrying their medical file around hospitals that were nurses and targeting them.
Well, and these same people, just to lay out the hypocrisy before we go to a break here, that go on and on about how illegals shouldn't have to prove that they're, show any ID. We're forcing American citizens to drive around with. I remember we had to have certificates if we drove in public, saying that the government gave us
That's
permission.
Right. Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, and those totalitarian-minded people. But then when it comes to, people illegally, oh, it's just like Nazi Germany. You want them to show their papers. It's like, where were you 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Chrissy Fulnecki with this. Yeah, more coming up.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88, heat index values as high as 98. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers mainly in the afternoon and then partly sunny with a high near 92. Heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79.
Ozarks elder law on both television, and I haven't heard them for a while. I know they were running pretty heavily on radio. Also, they're national spots that you can do your own will, and it's a couple $100, and look at that magic. Not so much. In fact, Missouri statutes won't honor many of that stuff as a valid will. You might get lucky with some, but even can you imagine? You just do sort of fill out your own, and we'll guide you through it, and then you're challenged by the government in court with all their attorneys using your tax dollars in order to try to get their way. Do you really feel confident that you have the legal expertise combined with the internet instructions in order to make sure that your will is done? I don't think so. I mean, you can go for it if you want to. My recommendation, Ozarks Elder Law, whether it is power of attorney, there are things you probably don't even know that you need to worry about, and they can go over all that with you, and then based off your specific situation, let you know what you need to do, and that consultation is free, and then they'll tell you, here's what it's going to cost if you want us to do it, and then you can decide, and if you don't want to, you don't have to, but that way you get the consultation free. OzarksElderLaw.com. Christy Fulnecki is with us.
Yes, and before we move on, I want to say that if Fauci is held in contempt of Congress, I have a perfect solution because he'll only go to jail for a year. Can we inject all the vaccines into him?
He's probably 80% of his bloodstream probably is vaccine.
I know, right,
stuff.
Right. Or we can inject other things.
I know some people that I know some people that I've been through other people to the number of vaccines and boosters they've gotten. I didn't even know you could get that many.
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
It is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that still go and get this stuff. And I'm telling you, it's anecdotal, but the people I know that have done this and have gotten as many of the boosters as possible, I swear every other Thursday have COVID.
I know.
I
That's
mean,
right.
it's
I know.
crazy. They're sick.
Right. I mean, I remember how many fights I had since I have so many kids, and people would always ask me, "Are you going to get your kids vaccinated?" No, I'm not getting my kids. But I mean, you just think of all of that, and then Fauci. I didn't realize until yesterday that he had a blood clot.
That's because he didn't tell anyone.
I know.
That was only found out because of the diary.
He had a blood clot.
Of course, they're not going to cover it.
That's outrageous. And
yeah, it was right. It was in. So it was. I think a couple months after he got the Moderna shot, and while I mean, of course, we don't know. It's just his diary entry, whether it was connected to it.
Bizarre.
But the problem was that that was a common side effect. Now, I don't want to say the side effect itself was common, but of side effects. That was common amongst them. And so here he is, and he has this same thing happen that others are, that he's trying to cover up and dismiss. And it's just, that was because of the diary entries. Yeah. And he's such this smug little dwarf sitting there. He's like, and trying, releasing my private diary. You idiot. You put it on government computers. That's like me leaving my diary out in a library, putting it on a library shelf, and then getting mad when somebody pulls it and reads it. That's kind of on me.
Shows you what a narcissist he was to think that no one would catch him. I mean, and that's what I didn't realize. It was on the government computer until Secretary Kennedy said that. And then Kennedy last night said he didn't even realize that Fauci had the blood clot either until the diary.
Yeah. Well, it almost sounded like that Kennedy found it himself. Like he was just going through files, and like Fauci had saved on the desktop Fauci's diary. Diary of Science.
Can you imagine the person that found that?
Like, surely that dwarf could not have been this stupid, but yeah, he was.
Yeah, the mad scientist. I mean, And I just can't
Dr.
believe.
Mengele, which a number of you have
Yeah,
texted in. It's true.
yeah, right.
Experimenting on people. He's just doing it. He just, instead of having to force people into concentration camps to hold them
Yeah, I know
captive
that's
in
what.
order to do
Yeah.
experiments, he had the entire country. And the media was, giving him the essential authority by brainwashing people into thinking he was God and you can't question him because he's science. And I'm telling you, there are people today. Because so I think it was on Wednesday. I was doing a breakdown. One of the media evaluation institutes had clocked the amount of time that the networks were giving in terms of coverage over the Fauci diary
Oh,
entries.
really?
And over the 3-day period, Fox News, it was like an hour, 39 minutes collectively. Second place was CNN, a minute 35. Like
Minute.
ABC and CBS, zero coverage. Zero. Well, of course, their networks also have people that Fauci was writing about, conspiring with when it came to questioning people who question him, and they're all hanging out together while the rest of us are told don't get together for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that they probably don't want the people to know it. But then because of people that only get their news from those
Yeah, right.
outlets, I'm telling
What?
you, they still have no clue. In their minds, people people who didn't get vaccinated, like me, there are
And me.
there are few decisions that I feel as validated about as that one.
Yes, I
But I'm
know. I
telling
know.
you,
I told you so, right?
these people on the left that live in their self-imposed prison in terms of information probably are perplexed, and in their minds we're just as crazy as they thought we were in the peak of COVID, because they have no clue all of the information that's been released. They have no clue of all the emails that have been released. They have no clue about Fauci's that, they don't know because they live in this bubble, and they watch networks like ABC and
They
CB, or
don't
no,
say anything.
CBS did a little, like 30 seconds of coverage, but these networks that refuse to cover the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a cold.
It
And then,
is.
and then you, because you think, how can you, I mean, just like Fauci yesterday, how can you sit there and then they had all those people stand up and then I saw Laura Ingraham behind him and I thought, oh, I'm sure she just, I mean, this is like vindication, I mean, and then does he even feel bad? If you lined up
No.
every person that has been affected by this and then they each told their story. I mean, I wish we could just read every single story of what's happened to people. Would he have any remorse?
He has
And
none. Mangalas don't. Text message, Pyramid Roofing Company text line. He tried to delete it, but the dummy doesn't know how computers work. He may have. I don't know. He probably did. He probably thought, oh, I just delete. That's all it takes. A server? No, I'm not hungry. Thank you. Someone texted in, you could send them to FedMed. I believe they experiment on people there.
oh, that is a good idea. We need to have people texting some ideas on what to do with
to
them.
do with old Fauci.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to him. I hope the states can do something to him. As far as investigating
Right.
him.
Yes, because for people that don't know, the presidential pardon, aside from the potential invalidation of that because of the auto pin and so forth, doesn't cover state charges. And so there could be a number of those. More with Christy Fulnecki coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki here. All right, so I want to talk about Sophie Cunningham. There's some updates here.
Okay.
It's really interesting. She has overtaken in terms of off-court attention Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, of course, made the WNBA relevant to 100-fold people that never cared about the WNBA. And then Sophie Cunningham sort of, I think in the beginning, rode her coattails to a degree because she ended up being transferred to the same team, Indiana Fever.
Right.
And she, a couple times on court, physically became the defender of Caitlin Clark. Because Caitlin Clark, white, straight girl from a traditional family, so she's constantly targeted, physically targeted. I mean, everyone recognizes it. And the WNBA lets the other athletes essentially make her a punching bag. And there are a couple times Sophie Cunningham was just like, that is it. And so that really spiked her to freedom. Well, then, or to stardom. Well, then, a couple weeks ago, she was asked on ESPN. She's not a political person. She doesn't talk politics or anything. What she thinks about girls being forced to compete against boys, transgenders in sports. And she's like, hey, I believe in protecting girls. She's like, transgenders, I love everyone, everybody, but when it comes to sports and girls, somebody needs to look out for them. And
that's not political, by the way.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. Like 20 years ago,
right.
Everyone agreed. It's just suddenly Democrats decided,
It's biology.
I know what let's do.
Yeah.
Let's make girls second-class citizens. And so as soon as I thought, boy, is she in trouble. So follow-up questions came, and she's just like, listen, I'm just telling you, this is how I feel about it. And she goes, people are accusing me of hating trans. I don't hate anyone. I'm just telling you, girls need protection. She said that if it weren't for Title IX, we wouldn't even be having girls' sports. That's the whole purpose of it. And so you could tell in those comments, she's very confident in her beliefs. It's not even a belief that she has because she has a certain political ideology and that comes with it. She just believes in protecting girls. And she's unmoved by all of these attacks against her. So anyhow, there were at one of the more recent games, I think this was yesterday, that there's the company XXXY and they promote and they've got product lines. It's in sports, I think sports stuff for girls, and they're very big into promoting girls and protecting girls. And so I think they had put out a video, and it was young girls thanking, so thank you. You didn't have to do this. We appreciate. Thank you for standing up for us girls. And at the Seattle Storm game on Tuesday, there were a number of girls that showed up. And these are minors, I think teenage or pre-teenage girls, and they are holding up signs that are saying thank you for standing up for girls. I mean, they were booed. They were screamed at.
I didn't see that, really.
The Seattle Storm has a policy that they will not, as an arena and as a team, post any sort of political messaging. They made an exemption that night in order to use the giant jumbotron to put out a message.
Oh, that's so terrible. So they had those girls holding the signs up on the.
No, they put a counter message like there's no room for hate or something like that. They were, grown men. These are girls. Grown men were screaming at them saying, take out the effing trash. Then the co-owner's wife starts yelling at them.
Seattle?
Of the Seattle Storm. Now, I did see, and so I'll tell you, this is what's great. So, New York Post, Sophie Cunningham rips Storm co-owner for leaving teen girls in tears amid controversy. Because the girls ended up, they were scared. They're being screamed at. This is what the left has done to girls. These are girls. I don't know, why can't
dads go over and punch these people?
Right. These are young girls who are simply saying to another woman, thank you for defending girls. And for that, the left has grown men, has players, has an entire team, a co-owner of the team, targeting them, screaming at them. This would be no different than if, during the 50s, 60s, you had black kids showing up and thank you Martin Luther King Jr. or something like that, and then having a bunch of racists scream and yell at them. And it is just insane that this is the environment the left has created for women. Now, I did see, I don't know the details of it, but this morning on one of the monitors, that I think the co-owner has been fined and maybe like for a.
That's actually surprising.
It is surprising,
I mean,
but
if it's one of those parents of the girls, I'm telling you, I would not stop until something was done.
and what's insane is that is all happening in the arena of women's basketball.
No.
This is women's basketball, and girls are getting screamed at for thanking a female player for defending girls.
That's just so crazy.
This is how deranged and dysfunctional the left is. By the way, do you know the name of the arena?
Oh, what?
Climate Pledge Arena. That's the name of the arena in Seattle. Of course it is. Text message. I recently talked to a dental assistant who said she gave birth alone because the hospital would not allow even her husband in the room. Yeah, some of that people don't unless they went through it. And it's always this way with tragic stuff. You never, there's certain things, unless you go through it yourself, you can't know what it's like. Having a loved one quarantined away from you in a nursing home or in a hospital to die alone and afraid as an elderly person is, I think, one of the most authoritarianly evil things that our government forced people to go through. I mean, just awful. And again, total lack of apology. And that stuff happened here in Missouri.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It happened here in Missouri.
And people looking in the window of nursing homes, like trying to talk to their
and I have
family.
Yet to hear any one person that was responsible for those things occurring to say, I'm sorry. Not one. The closest it's come is Fetterman saying that he regrets not pushing back more on this stuff. But I haven't heard one person, whether it is a bureaucrat, some health official that was given authority to make these decisions, a mayor, a governor,
I
or
know.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard one person say, I, listen, I was too quick to believe things that I shouldn't have believed. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Not one.
And what about locally? We had
Oh,
a head of one of our hospitals who would go to all my court hearings and send his people there.
well, like I said,
I mean,
Mayor
it's like
McCheese,
shit.
they
Yeah.
talk like he handled things brilliantly when it came to COVID. And not only do they not apologize, they pat themselves on the back and rewrite history.
Wait, do they realize that Fauci made up all of that stuff on social distancing and everything else? And when
They
people
don't care.
and when people would come to me like, there were so many spouses that came to me the same thing that they couldn't be in the hospital when their husband
Yeah.
or wife died, and they're like, "What can I
It's-
do?" So I talked to the
it's
legal
evil.
department, but I
Evil.
mean. That's why a lot of like attorneys didn't take it because they're like, well, what do you file the injunction on? I mean, because here you have Fauci out there saying it, and then people are like, well, this is science, so we can't. I'm like, actually, it's not.
what did
I
all
mean,
of those people that made and enforced those evil decisions fall back on? I was just following orders.
Yep.
I was just
That's-
following
You know what?
orders.
This is why I've said this so many times. If it wasn't for the American people, we would have still had those regulations years from now. So even though, a lot of people didn't win their lawsuits, a lot of people fought and they still lost their job. If it wasn't for the American people pushing it,
Yeah.
it's not because of a politician. It was because of the American people pushing back that we got rid of the COVID regulations.
Christy Feldecki, it was a great pleasure.
Boom.
Boom shakalaka. 3-pointer. Oh, by the way, the Sophie Cunningham, after she made the trans remarks, her Reebok or Adidas sneakers went on sale, sold out in record time.
Good.
News in 60 seconds. Yeah, well, you can't now. Sold out. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name's Nick Reed. We got a Heroes Breakfast coming up tomorrow. If you are a veteran, love for you to join us as we broadcast live from Scramblers. Between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning, you come out, you're going to get free breakfast, and that is thanks to Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the Warrior's Journey, and, of course, the great people at Scramblers. Emily Johnson, barring anything popping up to prevent her from doing so, she will be joining us just after 6:30 tomorrow, and that is an opportunity. If you have any questions for her, always I recommend you reach out to her. She is a great resource. I think a lot of times, and I understand why this is because it's the way some realtors are, you think, well, I don't want to just ask questions and bother them because, we're not really ready to sell we don't even know if we want to sell our house. And I'll feel guilty eating up time, or you worry that once I make that call, I'm just going to be getting text messages and phone calls all the time. Hey, are you ready? Ready to put your house on the market? Ready to put your house on the market? That's Emily Johnson. This is one of the great things about her. You don't have to worry about that stuff. That is not how she operates. Utilize her as a resource. She does it well. She sees it as part of what she does. And that means maybe you just wonder how much your house is worth if you were going to sell it. Call her up. She'll do a walkthrough with you, and she'll tell you what things you might need to do in order to get it market ready and what difference that will make in terms of asking price if you were to put it on the market today. Of course, 6 months from now, markets change and so forth. But point being is not only when it comes to actually selling or buying a home, but just any questions you have about potentially making that decision. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We've got Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88. Heat index values as high as 98. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers mainly in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 92. Heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79.
1041, I'm Nick Reed. Thursday means Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. We have Dr. Bradley Thayer, PhD and American Freedom Alliance Fellow and founding member of the Committee on the Present Danger China. His book, America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism. And Juan, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And the premise of this book gave me this imagery. I remember as a kid and seeing in it was a carport and a giant spider and somebody taking a broom and hitting the giant spider. And unbeknownst to that person, it was carrying what seemed like hundreds of little baby spiders, and they all went scattering. And at the concept here, the idea about communism and this idea that, boom, Soviet Union gone, took out the big spider, yet scattering everywhere, it seems, all over the world, including the United States, these little spiders popping up and evolving. And that imagery came into my mind as I thought about the premise of your book. And if you would just start off telling us a little bit about what prompted you to write the book and the misunderstanding perhaps we do have about what we thought was the end of the Cold War and the end of communism.
Well, Nick, great to join your audience and you today. That's a great image, and thanks for giving it to me as well. I think that I wrote the book because although we defeated the Soviet Union, we did not defeat communism. And we've been at war with that ideology since the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. And that revolution, that ideology spread by the Bolshevik Revolution, spread to China. It spread throughout the world, elsewhere throughout the world, and to the United States itself. So we've been struggling against communism with an external foe, the Soviet Union, of course, and now the Chinese Communist Party. But we've also been struggling against that ideology internally within the United States throughout the 20s, 30s, of course, 40s, 50s, until where we are, obviously, today. So the audience might, it's an important point to recognize, we've been at this for 100 years, and it's a long war in this ideological struggle that really is one fight between an external foe, the Chinese Communist Party now, which is driving communism, and the communists here in the United States. So when Americans reflect on it, we can see there's a reason why so many Americans have an experience of ideological upheaval. Why is there so much unrest? Folks often wonder. And it's because this ideology is still hard at work at destroying American identity, undermining our institutions, and in fact, Nick, as you know, is growing in strength with the mayor of New York City or the mayor of Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Look at Seattle, look at Colorado, look at the state of New York, Los Angeles. This is a growing movement, and we're on the cusp, really, of a revolutionary time. And my book calls attention to that and suggests what we need to do to address it.
I want to ask you a thought I've had regarding, you see the Soviet Union and communism and boom, failure. And we always had these images of the long bread lines and so forth. And then there's China, and China could be viewed by some people as, well, clearly communism works there. I mean, we've got connections with them and their advancements with technology and so forth. But I've felt that the difference between the two is that the Soviet Union did not have the free market system sort of hop-skipping over there and helping keep their form of government alive, whereas China does. You have all of these free market systems or somewhat free market systems that set up shop over there. And so the only reason that they can even sustain any sort of stability, if you will, is because of freedom and the free market system, giving it some sort of lifeline that almost like a parasite it survives off of. Is that, I don't know, somewhat accurate understanding of the difference there?
It's a really good point, Nick. The Chinese Communist Party recognized when the Soviet Union was falling, they had to do something else. They saved communism. the leader of the Chinese Communist Party at the time, Deng Xiaoping, recognized exactly what was happening and what would be necessary to save communism. And that would be, he's going to have to open China to the West. He's going to have to allow manufacturing in. He's going to have to allow investment in. And in turn, he'll make Wall Street and American politicians, American media, his partner. And so this is what happened. You really had America fund the growth of Chinese Communist Party. The Americans saved the Chinese Communist Party when it was on the cusp of falling after the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989. And we rue the day that that happened, of course, Nick, because what do we see now? China went in 1990 from about having 0.6% of world gross domestic product to having today about 19%. Its rise has been spectacular, but it was funded by us. And in turn, the Chinese Communist Party uses its wealth to buy off our media, to buy off our institutions, to have tremendous influence in the United States, but also to drive the revolution in the U.S. But by backing, for example, Tides, Act Blue, Neville Roy Singham, other groups, the Soros Foundation, of course, and so many other groups that are advancing a communist revolution in the United States. So China was different, but they were far more successful than the Soviets because they understood how to buy off Westerners, whereas the Soviets wanted to have nothing to do with us and in consequence fell.
We're talking with our author of the week, Bradley Thayer, the book America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism. This is, I guess, somewhat of a broad question, but I'm always curious how it is and what you think about. We've got a country like the United States, and there are some people, I include myself as one of them, that just so clearly understand from a humanitarian standpoint the value of liberty and freedom. But even aside from that, I recognize the realities of how beneficial it has been, how that form of life and culture flourishes and how it overall creates a much better standard of living for all of its citizens versus forms of government, of control, communism, socialism, and so forth. But so it's difficult, I think, for people like me to understand how other Americans, like, what are they striving for? What is their goal? They have the act. I mean, clearly they know communism has failed over and over again, and so I know what my goals are. It's better quality of life for people. That is the result of respecting individual life and liberty. What do you think their motivating factor is?
Well, I think the motivation of communists is entirely destructive. They're seeking power in order to destroy the West, in order to destroy the United States, and to place Americans in a condition of tyranny, which is what they seek to do and what they have since 1917 in Russia, of course, and in China. So the goal is one which is entirely destructive, but one which is going to be rewarding for a small number of folks who are going to be leading the Communist Party or that organization.
Right.
I think, Nick, it gets a lot of support because people are angry or people want change, right? So while the leaders of the communist movement have those objectives, why is it appealing? Because of its promises. What does it promise, right? It promises revenge, right? You've been wronged, and I'm going to right that wrong by destroying your society. You've been oppressed, and I'm going to solve that problem by destroying your society. You're angry, you want change, and communists promise change. I would say, but a deep point, Nick, is the fact is that the communists are really good at political warfare. They're the New York Yankees of waging political warfare, and that means they know what to target, and they know to target the ideas industry. If you take over American educational system and universities, and you have an exaggerated voice in American media and American think tanks, what are you able to do? You're able to rewrite history. You're able to ignore the abuses of communism, the horrific abuses, 100 million people killed by communists since 1917. Again, 100 million people killed by communists since 1917. You're able to, of course, write your own history. You ignore that while demonizing American liberty, demonizing the American spirit and American identity. So I think these are the reasons why they're so successful. If I write your history, if you give me control of your kids, what am I going to be able to do? I'll be able to give them the ideas that I have. I'll be able to rewrite your history. And as a result, I'm going to own the future, as George Orwell identified, of course, in 1984. If I own the present, I can remake the past. And if I can remake the past, I've got the future. So those are reasons I think they're so successful.
I don't know if this question is a little too far outside the scope of the book and the subject matter, but I think a lot of people wonder what seems to be this relationship, socialism, communism here in the United States and Islam. They see somebody like Mamdani and some of these other individuals, and they can't figure out the bedfellows. And is it the power thing? Is it still when those that talk about maybe Sharia law, for example, is the driving, motivating force the same as it is with the communists and socialists? It's just these are people that want power, and those are ideologies that say, hey, I'm in charge. I get to decide what your life looks like and how the government's run.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I see it this way. Lenin and the Bolshevik Party used to have an expression, the worse, the better. And by that, they meant they wanted to make things bad. They wanted things to be horrible in Russia, because by making things horrible in Russia, they were accelerating the revolution. And so when we think about the threat from Sharia and so many other issues, what's going on? Well, why did we have open borders? Why did 20 million people come in? Why do we have this, until Trump, of course, a broken immigration system? Well, the worse, the better. Why do we have broken election systems? Right? Why can't we vote? I'm old enough to remember we voted the same one day, and you knew the results at night, and you voted in person, and that was it. Well, why have we complexified this voting system? Why do we have ballots, et cetera? Well, the worse, the better. Why is it that Democrats don't stand at the State of the Union address when President Trump is calling attention, as he did in February of this year, to the heroic efforts of that American Army warrant officer who flew his Chinook after being shot, after being horrifically wounded? He was still able to fly the helicopter and land it. Republicans stood while Democrats didn't. Well, how do you make sense of it? The worse, the better. Right? They don't want to celebrate American identity. The point is to change American identity. So they're not going to celebrate anything about it. They're going to allow millions to come in, and they're going to allow radical Sharia Muslim, to get to your point. Right? Why do they do it? Because they don't care. By bringing these people in, by facilitating Sharia, they're making things worse. And that's better.
And our final question for our author of the week, Bradley Thayer. Again, the book, America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism. The latter part of the title there suggests it's not all doom and gloom. There is a roadmap to potentially winning and beating this ideology of evil. So what is the hope? What is the overall roadmap?
Americans, remember who you are. The stronger American identity, the weaker communism. The stronger communism, the weaker American identity, which is why they're attacking it relentlessly. Well, communists are always trying to undermine our identity. So what's the solution? Americans, remember who you are. Know your history. Know the importance of your institutions. Have an understanding, of course, of the American spirit. We're a unique people who had an incredible revolution that made the best country in the world. And lots of folks have attacked it. And in the past and do today, whether they're the Chinese Communist Party or communists in the United States. But if you know who you are, if you know your identity, you're going to be able to see through their lies and you're going to be able to defeat them. Because at the end of the day, although they've got a lot of strengths, they're few in numbers, and their ideas are evil and horrific. And most folks, when they see that, are going to have nothing to do with it. And I'm so heartened that President Trump has called attention to this issue, where he has been now for months calling attention to the fact that communism is anti-American and has no place in the United States. And you can either be an American patriot or you can be a communist. Trump is so right to call attention to that. And he's making the argument of my book. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful coincidence. But I think that's it, Nick.
Well, our Author of the Week, I appreciate your time so much this morning, and the book, Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Bradley Thayer's America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
This is
Heroes Breakfast tomorrow. That's right. If you are a veteran, served this great country, and join us as we broadcast live from 6 to 9 o'clock tomorrow at Scramblers. You're going to get free breakfast. That is thanks to Scramblers, Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the Warrior's Journey. Under Hardscapes and Outdoor, all of your hardscaping, your landscaping, your drainage issues, which probably haven't seen much of that lately. It would be good to have those problems again, as we did have a spring that was quite wet and a lot of rain, and that was a time in which a lot of times you find out that you got water pooling in certain areas. One of the reviews from Hunter Hardscapes was regarding some folks that said every time there was heavy rain, they ended up having to really clean off their driveway because it would end up covered with mud because they had serious drainage issues. And so Hunter Hardscapes came in and they took care of that problem. And so it was noted after Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor did the drainage, they never ever had this problem that existed for years. Water to me is a slow, very slow version of fire in terms of damaging. Fire can damage and destroy your home in a matter of minutes, whereas water, it may take years, but it can do just as much damage. And making sure that it is funneled away from your foundation, funneled away from your home, and that it goes where it needs to go can be all the difference between slowly destroying your home versus making sure that it lasts well beyond your own life. And it's one of the many services that you get with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoors. You can find them, of course, at hunterhardscapes.com and Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 88, heat index values as high as 98. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 72. For your Friday, a 50% chance of showers mainly in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 92, heat index values as high as 103. And for Saturday, partly sunny with a high near 79. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, you might not think about it, but the extreme heat, it can actually be pretty brutal on your roof, especially if you have an older roof or maybe a roof that was improperly installed. The heat, it can lead to things like blistering, nail pops, and even shifting, and then that can lead to mold, mildew, deck rot, just a bunch of things that you don't want happening to your roof. If it's been a long time since you've had a roof inspection, I do want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They do offer free roof inspections, emergency tarping services if you need them. They work with you every step of the way through that insurance process. Plus, they offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today, schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Joe Manchin has announced that his former senator, he and his daughter are going to disrupt the two-party system. And they are going to do this by launching the Independent Leadership Council in order to get independent candidates elected. It's always a little amazing to me, these people that seemingly have been part of the system for so long that think that they are going to magically be able to do something that no one else has been able to do, and you're not an outsider. And what I mean by that is you can have disruptors. Donald Trump was a disruptor. Now, would Donald Trump have won if he ran? That's an interesting thought, an interesting question. What if Donald Trump had run as a separate party, as a third-party candidate, like Ross Perot did? Now, Ross Perot did not win. He was wildly popular. This was during the Clinton-Bush era, the early 90s, and he was a massive disruptor. In fact, many people believe that, and it may have panned out this way just looking at the numbers, that Bush would have won if it weren't for Ross Perot, that Ross Perot drew votes away from Bush, which gave Clinton a plurality of the vote. Interesting fact, because of Ross Perot's existence in that race, Bill Clinton is the only president to ever be elected twice with a majority of Americans voting against him, not getting a majority of the vote. Now, he got a plurality in the way that our system works. He was legitimately elected president of the United States, but no other president has ever been elected twice with a majority of the population voting against them. Ross Perot, he could not manage to get enough support to get enough Americans to feel comfortable out of their comfort zone and to support him. I believe one of the reasons that he at least had a significant impact was because he was seen as an outsider. Donald Trump, clearly the same thing. Now, Donald Trump made the decision to run as a Republican, but it would be interesting if you could create a way back time machine, and if he had run as, he probably would have called it the Trump Party, but if I recall, he dabbled in the idea of running as a Reform Party candidate back in the, years prior. I could be wrong on that. But point being, if he had run as a third-party candidate, would he have still won? And I don't know that the answer is yes. And here's the reason why. People like to be comfortable. And if you have voted for a particular political party your entire life, it is difficult to break away from that. I would argue it's almost easier to jump from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat than it is for some people to vote third party, because they, in their minds, well, voting for the third party, they'll never win anyway, and so I'm just throwing my vote away. And it's just not comfortable for people. It's similar to somebody staying in a bad relationship. It's easier than going through the hassle of getting back out there, getting an apartment on your own, and you got to start over, and whose friends are going to be whose friends, and, what if I don't find someone else? And it's people will oftentimes stay in situations in which they are unhappy simply because they know it. And that's one of the reasons it's, we feel like we need a third party, we need a fourth party. They exist. There's the Libertarian Party, there's the Green Party, there is the, Socialist Party that is occupying the Democrat Party right now. You've got the Constitutional Party, you've got there is an independent party, which is separate from being, quote, independent. There are multiple parties in this country. We have a multi-party system. The reason it's not relevant is because Americans choose to not support third-party candidates for the most part. And it's a human behavior thing. The only way that, again, I believe that it can, or that the greatest likelihood of there being relevancy with some sort of third party is for it to be somebody that is a total outsider newcomer. Like, again, Ross Perot had some relevancy there. Donald Trump perhaps could have as third party, though I don't know that he would have been able to make it as third party. And the reason for that, I think, is because it in addition to any draw that you may get from one of the traditional parties, you, and Donald Trump did this running as a Republican, you bring in a lot of brand new voters. And so you're adding people to the equation instead of simply requiring people to pull away from traditional parties. But in order to get new people who have not been part of the system traditionally, you have to have not been part of the system. That's what appeals to people. That's what was appealing, about Donald Trump. Even though he ran as a Republican, he was seen as so different. People who never bothered to vote because they felt all politicians are the same and it doesn't really make any difference. They saw someone, they're like, oh, now wait, this is different. Now I'm going to get in the game. And so whenever you have these career politicians, which now Joe Manchin is doing, that come out and they're like, we're going to do a third party thing. I'm like, who do you think you're going to draw? You're not going to draw Democrat voters. They're going to stay with the Democrats. You're not going to draw away Republican voters, and not enough anyway for it to make a substantial difference, because they're going to stick with Republican. And you're not going to draw in new voters who have never participated because you're part of the establishment. A lot of times what happens with these individuals, whether it's like the Lincoln Group people or Joe Manchin or some of these other efforts. Remember when Trump was running the second time around, there was this huge push and there was this coalition of like Christie Todd Whitman and a bunch of these establishment people, and they were all going to come together and have a third way candidate, whatever it was called. I don't even remember the name. They didn't even have a platform, but it was just, going to be something different. But it was all establishment people. And it's an interesting contradiction to see people who are so entrenched in the way that politics work, yet seem so detached from why it works, maybe. So they're entrenched in the way that things are. But they really are detached from what resonates with the average American. And you see that when these establishment people come in like, we're going to be a disruptor. We're going to get out there, and Joe Manchin and his daughter are going to form this independent organization. We're going to start getting independent candidates elected. All right, well, good luck with that. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center coming up this Friday. It's my favorite sale that they offer out there. They will host their monthly horse sale, and that starts at 5 p.m. They will start with saddles and then horses to follow. Now, I was checking out their Facebook page, and this go round, they will have lots of ponies and donkeys. So if you are in the market for that, you won't want to miss this sale. In fact, you can check out some of those that have already been consigned on their Facebook page as well. Springfield Livestock Horse Sale. Now, if you can't make it out, they do offer live streaming and online bidding as well. And to check out other upcoming sales, visit their website, springfieldlivestock.com. And of course, you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I want to talk here for a few minutes about something I mentioned in the 7 o'clock hour, and it is the new target on the back of Sophie Cunningham because she is standing up for girls and women's and in sports and restrooms and just women's rights. And I want to preface this by saying I genuinely, as much as I like to think nothing shocks me, genuinely never would have believed that the Democrat Party would be responsible for creating such a hostile environment in this country for girls and women. For the characterization of how, women used to have it so bad, they were expected to stay at home, and this environment that has been created, to me, seems so much worse than the days when women were expected to be home barefoot and pregnant. When you create an environment in which you are told you need to seek therapy if you don't want to be forced to take showers with men in high school or college, or like the incredibly disgusting and shameful display at the Seattle Storm game Tuesday night where young teenage girls, simply for holding signs thanking Sophie Cunningham for defending girls in sports, were screamed at, were yelled at by grown men, were called trash. A co-owner of the Seattle Storm screaming and yelling at them, creating an environment in which you had people booing at them. These are teenage girls that they broke them to the point they were crying. This is the environment that Democrats have created for girls and women in this country. Now, in my lifetime, The lifetime of the country, there have been great cultural hostilities aimed at certain groups of people. In my lifetime, there has never been such a hostile, proactively hostile environment created against a group of people as the left have created against girls and women. That's in my lifetime. Now, this all began, and I knew when this started, I knew it. This was going to be, I was on vacation, I believe, and ESPN asked Sophie Cunningham to weigh in on the issue of trans in sports. Sophie Cunningham's not political. She's never been political. She doesn't talk politics. And she just straight up talking, she's like, hey, I think girls need to be protected. She goes, I don't have a problem. Trans people, love all people. Everybody has a place at the table. But when it comes to sports, this is the entire purpose of Title IX. Girls need to be playing against other girls. So, of course, follow-up questions a day later. We can't believe she's so anti-trans. And she's like, listen, I said what I said, and I mean it. She goes, I keep being accused of hating trans people. I don't hate anybody. But that doesn't mean that girls should not have their own sports. And it doesn't mean we throw science out the window, of course. And she's just been straight up about it. So at this, recapping from earlier, this Seattle Storm game, and these girls, they show up with signs thanking her for standing up for girls. And you had including grown men, screaming and yelling at them. A co-owner's wife, rather, I should say. This is what the left, how they brainwashed women to turn against women and girls. Sophie Cunningham has stood up for them. And so she said in response to these girls being attacked, I truly believe there is a safe space and love for everybody, all caps. Biological girls, biological boys, trans women, trans men. Everyone's welcome at my table. You can disagree and still be kind. Bravo to those girls for standing up for what they believe. You'll be hearing from me soon. Yay for girls. Truly embarrassing of the co-owner, unfortunately, shows the type of leader she is. So I don't know if she's the wife of a co-owner. It's been reported a couple different ways, but nonetheless. Now, evidently, that wife of co-owner is being fined. So it must be a co-owner and banned from like 5 games, which is the way it should be. This really is an interesting comparison to Colin Kaepernick, who, of course, was praised as just this moral leader. And this ridiculous presentation that even if it costs you something, standing up for what's right is, or standing up for what's right, even if it costs you something, how wonderful that is. Well, it didn't cost him anything. It made him millions and millions of dollars. He started getting sponsorships from companies like Nike and so forth. As opposed to Sophie Cunningham, who her whole thing is just standing up for girls. And the difference in the way that the media treats someone who is taking a stand against America and Americans and cops versus the way that the media is going to be covering a woman who is standing up for women. I think she is groundbreaking in this capacity. I don't know, particularly for a female or a woman in this era, that there is someone that is taking in this country at her level of profile that is taking solidly, without budging, a stance when there is the potential to actually lose revenue. She's got a ton of sponsorships. Now, that being said, and I think some of this is because of, what's her name, the actress? I can't believe I just forgot her name. Anyway, I'm running out of time, so I'll just wrap up the point here. She had a launch of a sneaker through either Adidas or Reebok, and it came after she made the, quote, controversial comments, and they sold out in record time. So I do think that she is less likely to lose sponsorships than maybe she would have been 4 or 5 years ago. But this is what should be seen as a feminist. This is what is a civil rights leader. Someone who does potentially have a lot on the line, who is standing up for girls who are under attack. And it is great to see her not budge. It's not just great for the cause, but it's great in terms of a role model for these young girls.